students, our our classes on this particular course will be presented to you, and today's course that I'm going to discuss is today's course is Restoration and 18th Century Drama and Poetry. Our today's text is The Rape of the Lock, that is a mock epic poem written by Alexander Pope. The Rape of the Lock, was a very famous and brilliant piece of writing. Still, it is enjoyed among the English students all over the world. But in 18th century, among the 18th century works, we consider it as one of the great piece of writing. The Rape of the Lock is a clear picture of 18th century social scenario, especially the London life, the city life, and the life of the upper class people of that society. The Rape of the Lock, is categorized as a mock epic. But before entering that discussion of epic and mock epic, let's have an idea about the background of the poem. This poem is written on a real event between the noble Peter and Fermor families. It was published in 1712 upon John Caryl's suggestion. John Caryl was a friend of Alexander Pope, and John Caryl suggested Alexander Pope to write a poem that will kill the quarrel between the families with laughter. Alexander Pope did it, and he did it successfully. After the publication of this poem, the feud was no more heard. As we find, it was almost vanished. It got almost vanished. And the real life event that happened between Lord Peter and Miss Arabella Fermor, that out of some frolic, Lord Peter cut a lock of hair of Arabella Fermor, and it turned to a feud between the families. Let's have a look in the next slide, Pope and his time. I think having a brief concept and idea regarding Pope's time will help you understand the poem better. 18th century literature, especially the time of Alexander Pope, John Dryden, we see that political writing became very popular. Toward the end of the Restoration period, two political parties emerged, namely Whigs and the Tories. And these two political parties became very prominent at the first quarter of the 18th century. And they also hired the prominent writers to write in favor of their issues and their ideologies. It was a common practice in that period. Political writing became dominant, and the writers started writing favoring or supporting their political parties, and that helped producing a great quantity of literature. So definitely this is an important issue in 18th century context. Beside that, clubs and coffee house became a part of their culture, because the politicians at that time, they didn't have much ways to communicate people. They needed to communicate people and interact with the people, and for that interest they choose clubs and coffee houses, because that would be the easiest way to find people and spread their agenda. At that time, they didn't have medias like we have today, but they needed to communicate to people. So clubs and coffee houses became flourishing in England. And this is important, particularly relevant, particularly to the discussion of our present text, because we'll see the role of coffee house in the poem The Rape of the Lock. However, I'll discuss it later. Periodical writing became very prominent. The famous periodicals like the Gadget, the Spectator were published in the 18th century, and it became a prominent part of 18th century literature. 18th century literature is marked for its prosaic quality, and the prose became the prime way of expressing the literary views. The next point that is important and related to that culture is the new publishing houses. The fall of drama in the first quarter of 18th century and the decline in drama actually created a vacuum uh, to produce materials for reading. People needed more reading materials than before because for entertainment drama once served the purpose of entertainment, but now in 18th century it failed to serve that purpose. And new publishing houses took the opportunity of booming the industry. They started publishing a lot of reading materials, mostly in prose. It can be said that all the published materials didn't have the desired level of quality or level of literature, but it didn't matter at all because people needed reading material, whatever it is. It might be quality or might not be. But this is one of the important characteristic of that reason. The next point that comes, and that is definitely related to our present text, the new morality. Towards the end of the Restoration period, the English court became immoral. King Charles II and his court became notorious for their immoral life, and it was also reflected, it was definitely reflected in the public life also. But after the decline of the Restoration culture, William III and later Queen Anne, they were they were of they were people of high morality, high level of principle, and the 18th century put emphasis on high level of morality, and that is reflected and that you can clearly find in their writing also. Alexander Pope showed us the frivolities, the trivialities of 18th century upper class society, but this is the message. This is the message for the need of morality. He, in other words, preached for morality, the necessity for morality. So, these are the very important issues you need to understand to proceed to the text. Uh, here is here are some points actually. Clubs and coffee houses. Regarding clubs and coffee houses, coffee houses become a center of increased political activity that I mentioned already. That I have mentioned already. Politicians and elites used to gather at the Hampton Court. Look at the name, the Hampton Court Palace. This is very important because the setting of the rape of the lock is the Hampton Court Palace. Hampton Court Palace is a place where the aristocrats or the politicians or uh, people of high profile used to gather, pass their time, and they used to have some fun, coffee. They used to play Umber, a card game. So Belinda, our heroine of this poem, went there to the Hampton Court to pass her time, and there uh, happened all that is discussed in the Rape of the Lock. So the name, the Hampton Court, is very important. The clubs and coffee houses became a center of gallantry, pleasure, everything. Coffee houses become, in other words, the clearing houses for literary business, whatever. This is the picture of the Hampton Court Palace in England, in London especially. And Hampton Court Palace, that I have already mentioned, is the place where the events took place. Let's have a look into the characters of our poem, The Rape of the Lock. First of all, I should mention the name of our heroine, Belinda. Belinda actually represents Miss Arabella Farmer, a member of Pope's prominent Catholic circle. in London, and Belinda is a character whose lock was ripped or cut by Lord Peter. The next important character is the Baron. Baron or Lord Peter was also a gentleman of a noble family, and he was also in the circle of Alexander Pope. And Belinda, uh, Belinda and girls like Belinda, they had a mind not to yield to the men, not to yield to men. They took it to their prestige to consent to any men. This was their definitely a type of hypocrisy. They showed that they are very important and they must not consent to the proposals of the young men. Baron, the Lord Peter, we see, is not a deviation from that type of character. Baron is also of same category, a character of same category, that we'll see that he is also a frivolous character. Next comes the character, the name Carroll. Carroll, John Carroll, a friend of Alexander Pope, and Carroll became Carroll played a very vital role because he suggested the writing of the poem, and that ultimately pacified two families. Goddess, the muse actually. At the very outset of the poem, we see the invocation part. Invocation is praying to the muse or god or goddesses to have success on some mission, like a journey or some battle, and that is usually done in epic poems. Since this is a mock epic, the same tradition is followed here, and uh, next comes the character Shock. Shock is Belinda's lap dog. You know what lap dog is? A lap dog is a fashionable dog, usually of terrier class. Uh, uh, the 18th century ladies used to carry a lap dog, and it was a sign of their aristocracy. Belinda, similarly, had a lap dog, and its name was Shock. Ariel is Belinda's guardian sylph. What is guardian sylph? That I'll explain later. Ariel is the leader of all other supernatural agents or supernatural machinery. Umbriel is a chief gnome. This is definitely a part of that supernatural machinery. Umbriel, who actually is very important because she travels to cave of spleen and brings the sack and files of uh, sorrows and sufferings, and she pours it down over Belinda's head. Brilliant, the sylph that is assigned to protect Belinda's earrings, and Momentilla is another sylph who is assigned to guard Belinda's watch. Crispisa is a character, the sylph who is assigned to guard Belinda's favorite lock, though it failed. It utterly failed to protect Belinda's lock. Clarissa is a woman uh, at Hampton Court in attendance. She lends Baron the scissors, the pair of scissors, and in this way, Clarissa became a consort of Lord Peter, and he helped Baron to cut the lock of the hair of Belinda. Thelestris is Belinda's friend, and Thelestris actually is named for Queen of Amazons and represents the historical Gertrude Morley, a friend of Pope's. Thelestris became extremely sad, and she expressed her melancholy in a way that evidently became very mm, uh, false, and what I should say, Thelestris is in other words is a symbol of hypocrisy. Sir Plume is Thelestris's beau who makes an ineffectual change. He was pleaded to change the mind of Peter, but he failed. Sir Plume is gallant. He is a fop, but of no use actually. So let's move to the next slide. That is genre. I'm going to explain this term because this will help you understand the category of the poem. This is very important. The From the very outset of the lecture, I told you that this is a mock epic poem. What is the category of mock epic? What is the genre? Genre is a French term. This is a French term for a kind, a literary type, or category, whatever you say. When we categorize anything, it has particular name. So the categories of literature are termed as genres. For example, epic, satire, drama. So these are the genres. And Rape of the Lock falls in mock heroic or mock epic genre. So if Rape of the Lock is a mock epic, then what is an epic? Let's start from the point epic. Epic, is a long narrative poem uh, that is written on a grand scale about the warriors and the heroes, and this type of story incorporates myths, legends, and history. Epics are of national significance in the sense that embody the history and aspirations of a nation. And in epic poems, we find battle, we find fighting, heroic deeds, and activities. These are the usual characteristics of epic. In this is a tradition, the epic convention, epic tradition. These are the features and important characteristics of epic convention. The fateful sea voyage you will see there. Invocation is there. The whole poem is divided into books or cantos. If you look at Iliad, you will see that is divided into books. Books 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And cantos you have in this poem or present text. This is divided into 5 cantos. Canto means a part. Cantos are parts. And there are battles, soldiers, preparations for battles, heroic deeds are there, participants of deities and spirits in the action of the story. This is a very important feature of epic. And in Iliad, you see gods of Mount Olympus, gods and goddesses. They took part in the battles, some in the favor of the Trojans and some in the favor of the Greeks. Uh, so, involvement of gods and goddesses in human affairs is a characteristic of epic poem. So, there are other points that you can count for epic characteristics. Scenes from the underworld. We have seen in the Rape of the Lock, that is the journey to the cave of spleen. High formal diction and language. This is important because epic is written on a grand scale. For that reason, the language is very high and formal. Religious or spiritual rituals are there. You will see in Iliad, you see that there are rituals, religious rituals, like sacrificing goats, black goats, white goats, lambs, to satisfy gods before any great enterprise or adventure. They sacrifice. This is a type of spiritual rituals. Uh, do you find any ritual type activity in the Rape of the Lock? Yes, there is. Lord Peter, he prays to the gods and he burns all his previous love tokens, garters, uh, billets. Billets means love letters. So the situation, the scene turns to a ritual type scene. So uh, definitely this is a link to the epic tradition. One thing you need to keep in your mind, that is epics and mock epics are never the same thing. In mock epic, the styles and the ways of epic are followed, but this is done in a way that will create laughter, that will create ridicule. In epic, the events take place uh, to create a serious atmosphere, to create a serious concept of theme. But in mock epic, this is done to create laughter, to satire, or to mm, do it in a funny way. And that very thing is done in Rape of the Lock. The story begins in medias res. Medias res means this is a Latin term. It means in the middle. In the middle of the story starts, and there are extended similes. These are the characteristics of epic. So the supernatural machinery is an important part in the poem that I have already explained. Pope uses supernatural machinery upon the model of epic tradition. In epics there are supernatural agents. Who are those agents? Gods and goddesses. But in mock epic, Alexander Pope used 4 types of spirits. The spirits who were once women who lived on the earth. But after their death, the spirits of those women turn to the souls of those women turn to some spirits according to their character and disposition. Sylphs are the light coquettes, gnomes are prudent and ill-natured women, salamanders are fiery and spirited women, nymphs are sober and soft-natured women. Next comes the very important point. What is a mock epic then? A mock epic is a work in verse. Mind it, a work in verse, which employs the lofty manner. Epic also employs the lofty manner, and mock epic also does this, but there is difference. Mock epic employ lofty manner to distinguish or to make it clearer that this is nothing serious, rather this is a ridiculous thing, a trivial thing. So this is the aim and purpose of using the lofty manner. High and serious tone is there. High and serious tone. That thing is also evident in epic poems. But in mock epic, this high and serious tone does not create the real high and serious atmosphere. Rather, it creates laughter, or it turns to satire. Supernatural machinery is there. In epic, usually these are gods, gods and goddesses. Angels we find in Paradise Lost, there are angels. But in mock epic, the supernatural machinery is not like anyone, gods or goddesses, or like the angels. Rather, in the present mock epic, they are uh, spirits, sylphs, gnomes. These are the supernatural machineries, and all these things are done to treat a subject and theme in such a way as to make both subject and theme ridiculous. This is the prime goal. This is the purpose of writing a mock epic. Here is a comparison table. You may need it. I have done this table just to make it clearer. Uh, Invocation. This is a very important thing in the case of epics. Invocation, you find I have given some examples also. Enid, Paradise Lost. In the Rape of the Lock, you will see the invocation. There is a line I have quoted: "Gods are involved in epics. In Iliad, gods participate in battles." That I have already mentioned. And the Rape of the Lock, spirits like sylphs, gnomes are involved. Journey to the underworld is a part of epic characteristic, and journey of Odysseus in Odyssey. Uh, that journey is not an underworld journey, but this is a journey, a long journey. Long journey is a part of epic characteristic, and that very journey you will see in the Rape of the Lock as the journey to the cave of Spleen. Sacrifice offering to gods before an important war or journey. For example, in Book 3 in Iliad, you see Menelaus sacrifices uh, black and white lamps to satisfy gods. Similarly, Baron sacrifices his former love tokens. So look at the juxtaposition, the contradictory senses. Menelaus's sacrifice was for some serious purpose, but Baron's sacrifice creates a sense of ridicule in our mind that that is not done in the case of Menelaus. So this is the difference between epic tradition and the mock epic tradition. Battles are there, battle of gods and angels, Paradise Lost. If you consider Paradise Lost, you will see the situation. The same thing happens, but in a funny way. In the Rape of the Lock, here we see a battle between men and women, the fops and the aristocratic ladies. They fight against each other concerning the rape of the lock, concerning the cutting of the lock. But getting involved in a fight, in a deadly fight, uh, requires some serious reasons, some serious ground that we don't find in the Rape of the Lock. Rather, the cutting of the lock of a lady is somewhat a funny thing, and they are divided. The ladies and the gentlemen, they are divided into two groups, and they fight with their bodkin, their pins, and they use these elements as their weapons. And there is another reference of fighting, that is the card game of Umber. That is Umber. Umber is a type of card game, and that card game is a representative of battle between Belinda and Peter. Now the technical part of the poem, the technical side of the poem. The poem is written in heroic couplets. You know what heroic couplet is? That is a much talked topic. Heroic couplets, pairs of rhyming lines in iambic pentameters. I think you have a very clear idea regarding iambic pentameter, and these succeeding lines rhymes towards the end of the line, and this is the dominant form in 18th century poetry, the pairs of rhyming lines. Almost all the great poems of 18th century, famous poems of 18th century, are written in this particular style, that is heroic couplets. There are use of figures of speech like hyperbole, personification, anaphora. You know what anaphora is? Is it something new to you? Anaphora. Anaphora is repetition of words between the neighboring clauses, repetition of uh, sense between the neighboring clauses. Anaphora. Alteration, repetition of same sound. Extended similes continues in lines. Antithesis, allusion. These are the very simple terms you have already been acquainted from the first year syllabus. Allusions are there. A lot of allusions are there in the Rape of the Lock, but these allusions are done not to make any serious situation or issue. Rather, these allusions create fun. These allusions produces laughter. In the next slide, that is the summary of Canto 1. Dear students, I hope today we are towards the end of our time limit. Actually, in the next class, I'll try to talk about the summaries of the cantos from Canto 1 to Canto 5, and then I'll try to give you a clear idea about the important issues and topics that are probable for exam. Uh, Definitely, it will come to a great support for you. So hope you will attend the next class, the second class, that is part 2. Now, if you have any question, you can ask any question. We have 2 or 3 minutes in our hand. Do you have any questions, students?
No, sir. Won't.
Is it clear to you?
Yes, sir.
The idea of mock epic, the idea of epic, the concept of epic and mock epics. But I think it's a bit easier for you now. Hope you will understand the poem better in a whole sense in the next class. So we can stop today, I think. Hope to see you in the next class. Keep fine till that. Thank you. Thank you all.